Her name is Megan Claire Chase, also known as Warrior Megsi. Did I say that right? Okay,
That's
cool.
right.
All right. Is the breast cancer program director and host of Our BC Life podcast at Share Cancer Support, a survivor of invasive lobular carcinoma, also known as ILC. She is a fierce patient advocate based in Atlanta, Georgia, with a deep commitment in addressing the disparities faced by breast cancer patients in minoritized communities and the adolescent and young adult population. In her leadership role at Share, Megan Claire develops and drives educational programming, elevating patient voices, and tailoring support to those often underserved. Her advocacy extends beyond Share through her work at Bayer Oncology's Digital Patient Council, the Oncology Data Advisor Editorial Board, and Worth the Wait Charities Fertility Advisory Board. My apologies. She is also a contributing writer and patient adversary board member for Patient Power, using her voice to amplify the lived experiences of those impacted by breast cancer. Megan Claire's influence in the cancer space includes presenting at the 2025 Association of Oncology Social Workers Conference in Atlanta, serving as a panelist at the 2024 ASCO Quality Care Symposium on Patient Centered Multidisciplinary Care, co authoring a podcast and infographic on genetic testing in metastatic breast cancer, and collaborating with Pfizer in the Action Guide to Disrupt Inequitable Health Outcomes. Her personal story and advocacy has been featured on PBS's Beyond Cancer, Stories from the Stage, and in national outlets including the New York Times, People Magazine, Cancer Health, Cancer Today, and Cure Magazine. Outside of her advocacy, Megan Claire is a versatile voiceover artist, passionate social justice activist, and proud cat mom to Phoebe Neal. I love it. Well, I do not want to delay her any further. I want to make sure that she is able to use all of the time that we have. Please make sure that you're paying attention. Ask her any questions that you have. Give her any comments that you may have. Um, yeah, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Megan Claire. I'm going to go ahead and let you share your screen.
Okay, well, my goodness. Hearing that about myself, I was like, whoa, done a lot. So again, hello everybody. It is really an honor to be here with you this evening. So I'm going to give a little bit of breast cancer education and then some of my personal breast cancer story. So, with that fabulous introduction, I felt it was important that you can see what I did look like and what I look like now. And it always is shocking to people because I look so healthy that you would never know all that I have been through. And again, with our BC Life, I love it. And since Dr. Bradford isn't here, I brought her with me on a couple of pictures. But first, I'm just going to kind of show you a little bit of what I've done at Share Cancer Support. And I'll give you a little bit of history of what we do. But it is thanks to Serena Goodman, who introduced me to Dr. Bradford, is why I'm here today. So, all of that to say, it's different panels being involved in conferences. Oftentimes, one of the very few that look like us. And so I brought her here with us today because I got to meet her, y'all. So I was in New York City. So I work remotely for Share in Atlanta, but Share Cancer Support is based in New York City. And through Serena, I got to talk with Dr. Goodman and then Dr. Bradford, and she actually came to our AfroShare Summit that was held in June of this year. So it was really lovely to get a chance to meet her. So let her know she's on the presentation.
I will.
All right, everybody. I just want to give you a little bit of history of Share Cancer Support since it is based in the New York area. And we are a national nonprofit. It was established in 1976, and we provide support, and that means emotional, but also educational, some financial support as well, for those who have been diagnosed with breast cancer and also the gynecologic cancers. So that means ovarian, cervical, and uterine cancers we provide support for. And we also provide support for metastatic breast cancer, and that is stage 4 cancer. And so a lot of the staff, including myself, some of us have actually been through the different cancers that we support, those experiences, so we're able to bring a different lens. But I feel I should tell you that my background is actually in media and marketing, and it was only after my cancer diagnosis that I got heavily into advocacy, which I will detail more in shortly. But I felt it was important because sometimes you might be thinking, wow, is she like a scientist or a researcher? No, I learned all of this. All of this was once foreign to me. So I want to just share some breast cancer signs and symptoms. So again, it's so important to know what your normal is, right? And know what your body feels like. So anyone that has a chest is at risk for breast cancer. That's basically it. So whether you're male, female, however you identify, if you have a chest, you're at risk. And so it's always important to recognize any changes in the size or the shape of your breast or breast tissue. If you have any pain in that area, a pulling of the nipple, a thickening or swelling, or even a new lump or something under the armpit, irritation, dimpling, or nipple discharge. So it's just really important that uh, you just know what your normal feels like. So, did you know that not all breast cancer forms a lump? A lot of people don't realize that. And I wanted to specifically make sure I shared this information about the Black community. So, with Black women, we do have a higher rate of dying from breast cancer than any other racial or ethnic group. And you might be wondering, well, why is that, Megan Claire? Well, I'm going to tell you. Because what they are discovering in the research now that we're starting to be included in the research, so that needed to happen first, is our bodies mutate these cancers differently. So while some do carry the BRCA gene, the BRCA1, the BRCA2, for me, I don't carry the BRCA gene, but I do have um, a gene that they don't know what it means. It's called an unknown variant. So it's just so important that even when we do get a diagnosis of breast cancer or any type of breast cancer, we have to be aware that it may mutate differently than our white counterparts. And also, the risk now, it's been staggering that younger women, 45 and under, are showing that they are diagnosed with breast cancer. And I truly do feel that a lot of that has to do with, the pesticides in our food, environmental, because the rate continues to like go sky high. But honestly, again, doesn't matter your age, everyone should know what's normal for their body. And I did hear a male voice, I believe, on here earlier. So I do feel it's always important to share, again, for men, though they only make up less than 1% of all breast cancer, it's still a 1%, and that means it can still happen. And it is so important that even though there's a lot of pink going on, that if you feel something, say something. We got to take that stigma and that embarrassment out of it. Because sadly, I actually know 4 men, 2 are Black men who had breast cancer. So even though it's rare, it still happens. So I'm gonna give you some education now about like our mortality rate. So the cancer that is most prevalent in the Black community It's called triple negative breast cancer. And now you think if something says negative, well, that must be a good thing, right? Well, what triple negative means is it's not driven by hormones. It's not driven by certain biomarkers. It's more aggressive because there's no like post treatment for this type of cancer. And what I mean by post treatment is a lot of times when you are diagnosed with breast cancer, you have a treatment plan, and that's called active treatment. That could include chemo, surgeries, radiation, but then oftentimes you are, taking like a tamoxifen or another type of aromatase inhibitor if it was driven by hormones, and that would mean estrogen and progesterone positive. But for triple negative, and especially in our community, there is no post treatment. Like there's nothing. And so a lot of research is going on and has been going on trying to figure out why is triple negative breast cancer more aggressive in the Black community. So just wanted to make sure that you know that. But the type of breast cancer I had is rare in the Black community, and we'll get to that in a moment. So I think it's so important to tell you what some of those breast cancer types are because so often, especially during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, all you hear is the word breast cancer, breast cancer. But do you know the different types? So we have non-invasive, and that is called ductal carcinoma in situ. And that means it's stage 0. So it's not actually cancer yet, but it could form into cancer. And so it hasn't like invaded yet the full breast. And so it's often referred to as DCIS. And it's often treated as if you did have cancer because the goal is to, prevent you from actually getting the full cancer. And the same for lobular. We also have lobular carcinoma in situ. And again, it's not invasive. It's stage 0, but it's still treated as if you have it. And then we have invasive. So invasive ductal carcinoma, IDC, that one is the most common one that most people get no matter what your ethnicity or racial background is. About 80% of people are diagnosed with invasive ductal, and that is in the ducts and the milk ducts. But invasive lobular, that one is the one I was diagnosed with, and it's actually in the lobes, so it's almost like your underarm, like here. And so I didn't automatically think breast when I felt a huge mass, but we'll get into that in a moment. But it's important to know that really it's between about 10 to 15% of all breast cancers are diagnosed with invasive lobular, and that percentage is even lower for Black women. So we still need a lot of research in that particular area too. But then there are rare and aggressive types. So I'd already mentioned the triple negative breast cancer. And again, that one only affects about 10 to 15% of people. And again, it heavily impacts the Black community. But also we have inflammatory breast cancer, and that one is also rare, often called IBC. So there are a lot of acronyms in the breast cancer space. But that one causes redness and swelling and pain in the breast and is often hard to detect as well. So I just wanted to let you know last year, and this was so amazing. So SABCS stands for the San Antonio Breast Cancer Conference. That is the largest and annual conference that's all about breast cancer from stage 1 to stage 4. And it always happens in San Antonio. And I wanted to specifically show this picture because to actually get a chance to work on a research project with 2 Black professors. So Dr. Tisha Felder, she's the one in the white. That's me in the middle. And then Dr. Ingram is in the brown jacket. to be able to work and see representation, right, was huge. I had never experienced that because oftentimes I'm the only one that looks like me in these rooms with pharmaceutical companies and other organizations. And so we did a whole qualitative study on Black women diagnosed with breast cancer, especially that triple negative breast cancer, and like why. Like we went into major details. We had a focus group of about 20 Black women who were at different stages and different areas in their journey of triple negative breast cancer. So it's important that we capture all that data and make sure that we get a standard of care that we deserve. And also, too, this was something that came from my head because at Share Cancer Support, I am the only one in my department that looks like me. And I said, you know, if we're going to create materials, it needs to resonate with the community that you're trying to reach. And because of my media and marketing background, I pushed hard, and this is what we came up with. And the first side is if you have not been diagnosed and gives more general information about how important it is to know what your normal is, to ask about your family history, but also your family medical history. It's so important because you know what? Johnny's bad knee might have been bone cancer. Like it's so important in our community that we talk about, you know, what other illnesses have occurred in our family so that way it helps if you were to be diagnosed with breast cancer or any type of cancer, it'll help give your care team some background into, okay, maybe we understand why you got this, or let's do some genetic testing and see what's going on with you. And all of that can impact your treatment options. And then on the backside, it's if you have been treated, what are some next steps for you? Because it is very overwhelming to hear those words. You have breast cancer. So I was really, really proud of this piece. So I'm gonna go into a little bit of my family history. That's my little mother's hand. That's my hand. Again, I grew up in Macon, Georgia, but I was born in Iowa, Davenport, Iowa. My parents, it took them 8 years to get pregnant with me. Um, they had a hard time, and I am an IVF result. During the third IVF treatment, it took the miracle, right? But during that third month of pregnancy, my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And at that time, um, there was no scenario where both of us would survive and thrive. Everyone said it was either both will die or one will live, one will die. It really is a miracle that both of us did survive. And our faith, my mother is definitely a woman of faith. My parents have divorced. But all of that to say, she was determined to bring me into the world, but I came into the world at 6 months. So she started hemorrhaging to death at 6 months, and I was born 3 months early. So I was technically supposed to be born in this month in October, but I was born in July. And my Nana, my maternal grandmother, she had cervical cancer, and then she ultimately died of lung cancer in 2013. And my Nana, our little claim to fame with Nana, is she was the first biracial registered nurse at St. Vincent's in Bridgeport, Connecticut. They thought she was half white and half Hispanic. She did not tell them until 5 years later that she was half white and half black. And she is the one that taught our whole family know your rights as a patient. It's your patient right to ask questions. It's your patient right to get pushy. It's your patient right to change doctors. And more importantly, if you feel something out of whack, say something. And so then on my mother's side, the cancer, none of the cancer seems to run on my father's side. It's really all on my mother's side. My maternal aunt, she is a breast cancer survivor. And then myself, so when I was born with a tumor, my right leg. I weighed 1.5 pounds. I had seizures. So the joke in the family was I looked nothing like my mother externally, but internally, I got all the issues because I would get cysts the size of lemons on my ovaries. I would have multiple abnormal pap smears. So, ever since I was 16 years old, I had been monitored because we all knew eventually I would probably get either ovarian or cervical cancer because that's where all of my issues were. Breast cancer was never in the picture. And now my mother, she does not like to be pictured. That's why I have this corner of her. My mother now has a rare blood cancer. She's been living with this blood cancer for over 20 years now, and I'm sad to say it is progressing, but she's still a little spitfire. I wanted to, I know I talked about the signs and symptoms earlier, but I feel it's important that sometimes the symptoms are not going to be what you see on on Cher's website, on American Cancer Society, because I did all the things right. I knew something was wrong. I advocated for myself and I was still dismissed. So I wanted to go into what those symptoms were. So, because of my family history of ovarian cancer, I was able to get a mammogram covered by insurance at 35. And I always tell people you can get a mammogram at any time, but in order to have it covered by insurance, before it used to be 45, but they lowered that age to 40. But I was diagnosed 2 months after my 39th birthday. And when I got that mammogram at 35, I was told, hey, you're clear, come back when you're 40. So then I started gaining a lot of weight. I was someone who grew up very fit. I was a ballerina, I was in musical theater, I was a cheerleader in college. And then all of a sudden I'm gaining weight. And then I started getting these tiny green bruises on my lower left leg. So immediately I'm already thinking, okay, I must have leukemia. I mean, like I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what it was. And then my hair, and that's why I show these pictures here, because I used to have very thick hair and it changed texture, got really brittle, and started falling out only on the left side. So I had to cut it super duper short, which I had never had short hair before. And it was devastating to me. And it was my stylist that started, to alert me. She's like, are you missing a nutrient? Like, what's going on? Your hair texture doesn't even feel the same anymore. And again, this is over a 2 year period, by the way, of me constantly going to the doctor and having blood tests done. But everything kept coming back negative. And then I had what I was told was a zit on the outside of my left breast. And I remember thinking, that's an odd place for a zit. Like I'm questioning this, which is why we need more dermatologists of color to recognize things on skin, right, of color. And then I got a circular green bruise on the back of my left arm. So again, all of these symptoms were so strange, but then ultimately it made its appearance, the cancer. So this is an actual picture of my cancer. This is my tumor, and it is huge. Like this is it right here. It was 4.2 centimeters. And so I was diagnosed September 14th, 2015. So my diagnosis anniversary has recently passed. And I got that cancer call at 3:05 p.m. And that was a Monday. And I distinctly remember all of this very vividly because earlier that day, I didn't feel anything, right? And I was very excited for later on. This is a few days before I actually got the cancer call. I was excited that, hey, I'm gonna watch my favorite show on TV. And then I felt it because of the weight gain. My breasts had gotten bigger, so I was always feeling them. But when I felt that mass, it was so huge and hard, like you could actually like kind of see it raised. And so this was large, and so invasive lobular is known as the sneaky cancer. So it was already in me even when I had that mammogram at 35, and it was missed because this sneaky cancer can mask and look like healthy tissue, and current imaging for our screenings can't pick it up, which was really upsetting, right? And so I was diagnosed with stage 2A invasive lobular, hormone positive, and that's ERPR positive. HER2 negative, that's a biomarker, and that's good, because if you're HER2 positive, that means it's really aggressive. And my lymph nodes were clear. But I was also diagnosed again 2 months after my 39th birthday. So I was put in another underrepresented category of adolescent and young adult, or the AYA breast cancer community. And so I'm just showing you a couple pictures here. So I remember my first chemo treatment. I had 4-adriamycin, and it is literally known worldwide as the Red Devil. I don't know if you can see it here, but it is red. And it actually has like a skull and crossbones on it. And this was my infusion nurse. Her name is Cecily, who I still keep in touch with. I'm like, why is she wearing a hazmat suit? This is about to go in me. So this is what's called a port that was in my chest. I still have this scar, but my skin got so delicate by the end of chemo, it was burning. The tape was burning my skin. But this was in me, and it's very weird to have a piece of equipment in me, but that was the only way to be able to receive the toxic treatments. And then I ultimately had to get a blood transfusion also. For some reason, I was very excited to find out I was not just O, I was B positive, and I felt that really fit my personality. So I think it's very important that everyone knows what their blood type is. But if you don't, they will type you at the hospital. But I was so weak. And this is why I show this picture. This is me before I went into surgery. And as you can see, it really took its toll. I was so weak by that point that they were like, you need to have a blood transfusion because we are worried that you will not be able to survive the surgeries, because it was multiple surgeries at once and risk of infection. And so ultimately, I had a lumpectomy of my left breast. But what I want to share with you, oftentimes when you hear about breast cancer, you always hear that people have gotten a double mastectomy, had both breasts removed, right? Well, because of new techniques, and because the treatments are getting better, not everyone needs to do that. I was able to conserve my right breast, but my lumpectomy actually was a quadrantectomy. And you don't really hear that mentioned often. They took a whole quadrant of my breast out because of the type of cancer I had and my age and my genetic history. They wanted to really get a clear margin. So I was very excited that I was able to wear my favorite pink hat on with my little baked potato cap on there. My surgeon, she was amazing. And then I had the reconstruction, and then I had my sentinel lymph nodes removed, and that's all happening all at once. So it was a lot of big surgeries in one day. And radiation. And I know these pictures may be shocking and hard to look at. Trust me, it was hard to feel. Something that you don't often hear on melanated skin, we tend to burn more with radiation. I was not prepared for that. My radiation oncologist told me, hey, you might get a little red, or it might get a little warm, and you have to keep it moisturized, right? My skin literally started burning off, and I now know what a burn victim feels like. It was so painful. And the fact that my radiation oncologist told me, well, I've seen worse. Y'all, I had a meltdown right then and there. And I was like, well, I've never seen worse. And you've never experienced radiation. I demand a new radiation oncologist. And I refused to like go to that session until I got a new one. And I ultimately had to have 33 rounds of radiation. So this is after surgery now. So I had the 16 before surgery, the reconstruction, the quadrantectomy, and then I had 33 rounds of radiation that ultimately burned up the side of my neck, through my back, and then, of course, my underarm. And me in that blue is the mold. So you have to be in the same position every single time you get radiation. And it's painful, it's uncomfortable. And then that's one of my radiation nurses. And then you get a little certificate. In Atlanta, where I was treated, we didn't have a bell for chemo to ring or a bell to ring for radiation. I want to get into my survivorship because I think sometimes people think that everything is great. You bounce back. You're back to your normal. But the thing is, the reality is, for many of us, we never get back to what we used to be. That part of us is now gone. So I'm showing you the smiles here. Got honored by the Atlanta Falcons. That was pretty cool. I don't follow football, so to this day, this was supposed to be an alumni Falcon. I have no idea who that was. But anywho, it's exciting to be part of all of these, events and things, but I want to make sure that with those smiles, there's a lot of grief. Like, even as I'm talking to you right now, I am in pain because I now have chemo-induced peripheral neuropathy, which is numbness and tingling in my hands and feet. I also have fibromyalgia that was brought on after my surgeries because I also had to have a hysterectomy and an oophorectomy because the medications that I was supposed to be on for 10 years, my body rejected them. Remember when I said that certain cancers can mutate differently in Black bodies? Well, certain medications may not work in Black bodies because enough of us weren't represented in that clinical trial. And so I was someone that used to be really against clinical trials until I experienced this and I realized how vital it is for us to be represented in those clinical trials to make sure the medications work on us. And so I did. I struggled with my mental health and getting that fibromyalgia. I'm in pain 24/7. And I also have a weird back pain after I had to have the additional surgeries because they had to surgically move me into menopause in order for me to see if my body would accept the other medications. And unfortunately, they did not. So I have been on no treatment for the past 8 years, and I will be a 10-year survivor come March 28th because I go by my surgery date of next year. But also, my career. I used to work in media marketing at iHeart Radio on the traffic side, which means the commercials, right? I used to love that frenetic pace, you know? I couldn't handle that anymore because of what we often call chemo brain or brain fog. And I ultimately had to leave the industry that I had worked, all those years through college, etc., to get to. I couldn't do it anymore. But I started speaking up because I was like, I can't be the only one that's experienced so many barriers. Yes, I have a lot of joy, but I also want to bring the reality of what this experience can be like. So I ultimately, naturally became an advocate. And that is something I never set out to do. But through my writing, my blog, Life on the Cancer Train, I never thought to start a blog before. And it took me about 2 years post cancer before I was even ready to start processing what I had just been through. And so I just started writing and just being really, brutally honest about the experiences of being a woman and then being a Black woman, then being a young Black woman, and then being a career woman, and then ultimately losing my fertility. I am an only child. This is it. This is my legacy. It's me, my digital legacy. And so people started reading my writing. And that's how I ultimately ended up in the New York Times. And all of this has happened since 2020. So we're not even talking about like a long time here, but it was my first time talking about my cancer and my career together because you're often told, don't disclose, to certain people. But at the height of COVID, when millions lost their jobs, and I was one of them at that time, I was working in marketing. Um, that's I got a call from a friend who knew of a friend who worked at the New York Times, and they were looking for people to write about who were deeply impacted by these huge layoffs. And when you have had a breast cancer diagnosis, you make your appointments like months in advance. And that Monday, I got was told I was being laid off, and my insurance would end on that Friday. But what I didn't know is the doctors, they were furloughing staff, which they weren't telling that to patients. And they were like, hey, can we push your scans to like next week? And I'm like, absolutely not. I got to get these done. I can't go into a pandemic not knowing if I'm still in, and we like to call it no evidence of disease. So Ned is my long-term boyfriend. I don't like to say remission because that just sounds very temporary. But again, it's been really exciting to be able to share my story and more importantly, help empower, inspire everyone about their health, the realities of breast cancer. And I'm just going to kind of scroll through so you can see some other things. Like here at ASCO Quality Care Symposium, I was the only patient on a panel at that 3-day conference in San Francisco last year. The only patient. And how oftentimes I am the only one that looks like me on those panels as well. And I have to speak up because I take this responsibility very seriously to help educate our community, but also, call certain pharmaceutical companies out, call certain other advocacy groups out, and say you need to do better for our community. So I'm going to wrap it up here and see if anyone has any questions or comments.
I want to thank you for sharing your story. You gave me a huge insight into the journey that you went through. I lost my mother to breast cancer. And she was one of those people that kept everything inside. She laughed for everybody, no matter how much pain she was in. And what you just explained helped me to understand where her head was. At least it gave me some peace. So I thank you for that, because I couldn't wrap my head around a lot of this stuff, but knowing how she was and knowing what she did, you just helped me understand that a lot better. So thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your story. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And that is why I share the story and I share the realities. It's a lot that goes on. And the fact that my mother and I actually were both receiving chemo at the same cancer center was a very odd bonding moment. But the guilt she had in knowing that I did inherit this in some kind of way, they just don't know what that gene is yet. And thank you so much for being so vulnerable and sharing that. And whatever I can do to help bring peace and help educate, that's why I'm here.
Megan, I thank you for sharing tonight. I'm probably the only man on the panel tonight, but I'm going to add you to my prayer list because you've inspired me tonight. I'm almost in tears to see that as a human being, we can go through so much and still be joyful in our spirit. And thank you so much for sharing tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And, I know we prayed before this, and because I am definitely a woman of faith, that played and continues to play a huge part in my life because I feel like we are all walking miracles. But then when certain people get hit with a lot, right? A lot of change, and you're like, I'm not understanding this path, God. Like, what are we doing here? And I didn't understand it in the beginning, but I understand it now.
Yes, my name is Madeline Barnes, and um, I'm affiliated with a group called Age Friendly of Central Brooklyn, and I was the host of a health fair that happened at Christ Fellowship Baptist Church just on Saturday. Yes, and it was really overwhelming. It was so wonderful. I've gotten a lot of reviews and everything in reference from the vendors as well as those that attended and all. So with all that you have, been through and all that you've brought to us tonight, where is it that you're located in Manhattan? Because I would definitely like to be able to share some of this information with my group. It started out as a women group, but men are, like you said, they are invited as well. So it's something that they need to know also, and all the different parts of, this breast cancer and everything, things that we haven't heard about before, is like really a lot and kind of overwhelming. So it's something that needs to be taught a little bit more and some more information. So where is it that this group is, located in Manhattan?
So, I'll definitely make sure to, well, Dr. Bradford has that information, so I'll make sure that she shares that out. We also have what we call AfroShare. Did not come up with that name, but they are ambassadors. They are Black ambassadors who have been through breast cancer or gynecologic cancers, and so they are local to New York City. And so I can make sure and give the information for our outreach department, and one of the ambassadors can come and talk about these different types of breast cancer and their experiences as well.
Okay, that sounds good, because we were just speaking today about different what we have cohorts within the group, and I'm a part of the health and wellness. So we had to like give a little brief description in terms of what we would like to happen next, or what type of health fair would we like to have again. So, and not only that, to even have someone, come and speak at, at one of the meetings, because we hold a meeting once a month, the second Tuesday of the month, which I just attended today. So, what you've shared was really, inspirational to me, and I would like to be able to share that with others as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we also, have materials. So don't worry. We'll make sure that you get that information and can get all that coordinated and get some of our materials as well. Because like you said, so many people do not know about the different types of breast cancer. I mean, when I got the cancer call at work also, like, don't do that. Why they do that at work? I was like, I have what? Like, I had never heard of invasive lobular before. I was
Hmm.
shocked. I
Yeah.
was shocked.
Hmm. Yes. Well, thank you. This was very informative.
Are there any other questions? Thank you all for who've been speaking up and asking question. Megan Claire, there was one comment in the chat I wanted to make sure that you saw from Coach Dave. He says, "Thank you. That was amazing. Now I can help my sisters more."
Oh,
And so,
thank you, Coach Dave.
yeah, we want to thank you. Um, just an amazing testimony, and thank you for sharing both sides of the story. Right? Because oftentimes we hear about the survivors and, oh, it's great and I'm happy and I'm this and, and then that is true, but only partially,
Hmm.
and so we thank you for sharing both sides of the coin because it is a little bit of bittersweetness that comes with the survivorship. And so we're grateful for you sharing the testimony and the knowledge and the wisdom that came with that today. And so we just continue to pray your encouragement and your strength and your health. And, as you continue to go forth and everything that you're doing, that God would just continue to keep you and your family. Any additional questions or comments for Megan Claire before we close out this evening? Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Yes,
No, you're fine.
once again, I know she indicated that she's located in Georgia.
Yes, ma'am.
Because the majority of my family lives in Georgia, and one of my cousins is a nurse who is actually retired from Grady Hospital, and I would like to even get some information over to her so she can share, because she's very instrumental in going out, visiting the sick, to shed in, and things, and also to her church. So yeah, this is
Oh my goodness, Madeline.
yes.
Well, yeah, okay, we'll make sure we get information because yes, I do. I would love to come speak to the church everything.
Yeah.
And then if there's ever anything again that's virtual like this, it's an honor. Normally I would send like an ambassador to do this, but I was like, I want to come to you tonight, all of you, and share my story and everything. So, you know, and I like to do things outside of the awareness month too, because it's 365 days.
Yes, that's right. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, a couple of things just for those who joined late and missed the announcements. Just remember that this is your Women's Day weekend, so don't forget about the brunch on Saturday and the Women's Day service for Sunday. Also, Pastor Crystal mentioned about the survey from last week. You all had a chef on that showed you some wonderful, I believe it was plant-based meals, and she sent out a survey, and she apparently has only gotten about 8 of those back. So if we could make sure that we're getting those surveys back to her, she'd really appreciate it. I believe that the survey link was resent to you through the calling post today. So if you can make sure you complete those, we'd really appreciate it. Also, remember tomorrow is Wednesday. It's hump day. We're halfway through everything that we do throughout the week. But remember that you have Bible study tomorrow. So the line opens for 7:15. Remember, you have that 15-minute buffer where you get to hang out with Pastor Kelly, and then service starts for 7:30. If we have no other questions or comments, all minds are clear. I will close us out in a word of prayer before we leave today. Questions? Let me check the chat one more time. Okay, all minds are clear. So, Heavenly Father, we thank you. We want to just take a moment and pause and say thank you for the life of Megan Claire. Thank you for her courage to share her testimony. Thank you for her strength. Thank you for the knowledge and wisdom that she has gone out and gathered, and then it is bringing it forth to the multitude. We pray, Father, that you would continue to surround her with your love, cover her with your protection, and most of all, keep her walking in good health, because we just speak your word over her, Father, that she would be walking in good health. And so, Lord, we thank you for her life and for the legacy that she's consistently and daily building. We thank you for the wisdom and knowledge that was spread among us today. Pray, Father, that it would be seared in our brain, that we won't forget the things that she taught us today, that we would take it forth to our family and our friends and our community. And that not only will we be each one teach one, but maybe each one teach 10, and continue to push forward and move forward in the knowledge and wisdom that we gain today. Father, protect us all as we go out through our evening and through our day tomorrow. Bless those that were here and bless those that wanted to be here but could not be able to attend today. We just thank you again. We give you the honor and the glory in all that we do and in all that we say. It is in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you all again so much. Megan Claire, thank
Amen.
you again. It was such a pleasure to meet you. I'm sure that Pastor Crystal will definitely listen to the replay, but just so grateful to have the opportunity to have met you tonight. So thank you again so much. And maybe one day I'll meet you in person too.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
Welcome.
Absolutely.
Thank
Thank you all.
you.
Have a
Thank
wonderful
you
so
evening.
much.
Thank you. Good night. Good night,
Have a good
Teresa.
night.
Thank you.
Night.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Bye.
Good night.